You're now tuned into the Real Rap Radio Show. I'm your host, Walil Archer on Downtown Hot Radio. My special guest with me, I have Charles R. Floyd. How are you today?
I am fine, sir. Thank you. Good to be here.
So glad to have you. So excited for you. You've written your first book. Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Excited about it. Just looking for the next one.
Nice. Let the listeners know the title of your first book.
A comparative analysis between the Bible and the Quran. Truth versus chaos.
Great title. How did you come up with that title?
Well, the book starts out in the first part, which is the majority of the book, discovering the disparities between the two texts. So consequently, it became a natural evolution of the title to be as a comparative. Because as I got into it, I began to compare the work doctrine against grace, and then the discriminatory practices of women against what Christ says and Paul says of, there is no free, no slave, there is no woman, no male, no female, and just right down the line. And there's some passages in part four. Part three is the jihad passages, which is really, that's basically hate versus love, and it needed to be said because I all the way through. And what prompted the book, quite frankly, was 9/11 when that happened, and the president at that time came on the television lines and says, "Well, this is a peaceful religion. We all serve the same God." And I said, "Man, I don't think so. As a born again Christian, we believe in the inerrant Word of God." So I began to study that. I said, "I've got to understand what these people, these jihadists or whatever they are. I need to understand what their motivations are. What's pushing them to do this thing." And as I get into it, and I read the Quran twice. I read about 20 or 25 books on the Muslim doctrine. And the more I got into it, the more I began to say that there is no such analyzation of the disparity between the two books, because they believe also that their Quran is the inerrant word of Allah. So if we have two benchmarks, we've got to have come to some reconciliation of what is the difference between them and which one is right. So I laid the book out, quite frankly, as a cause of action lawsuit. Here's one testimony, and then here's the other side's testimony, and then I give a narrative or a closing statement on what the disparities are and why I think that applies. Then in the final conclusion of the book, and that's the part that's really my own. That's the part that really gets into the is Allah equal, or is he God? I don't think so, because it's just there's so much disparity, and in reality, it comes down to the understanding of the text themselves. When Muhammad, when they put out the Quran, it only became a written document in the 1920s. He lived in the 5th and 6th century. So quite frankly, the timing aspect of this whole thing with the Bible, and throughout the Quran, he talks about he's validating and confirming the Torah. He's confirming the book. He calls it the book. And he at some point in his life had a very shallow knowledge of biblical stories, because a lot of his and realized that the Quran is a compilation of many of his sermons. And as such, when he presents a biblical stories, it's slanted in such a fashion that it 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 overlooks many of the messages that the Bible actually puts out. And I guess a description would be an example. When in the book of Judges, Gideon tells him, he says, you got 10,000 soldiers here to go up against the Midianites. These 10,000 soldiers, the ones that lap like a dog to drink, he says, take those and go in and do away with the Midianites. He does, and he goes ahead and whips the Midianites, and all that's history. It's biblical. But the problem gets to be, and realize that the Midianites are a several generations away from Abraham and his third wife Keturah. Midian was one of their sons. So all of this, I said all of that to say this: the way that the Quran depicts that story is, he says that it was Saul going after the Philistines and Goliath. Well, not only is there the participants disparity amongst the participants, it's also a disparity in time, because Paul or Saul was the king, the first king. His story is written in the book of Kings, First Kings, and consequently, Gideon's story that don't make a lot of continuity of thought. And I guess when you gotta realize that the purpose, I guess, of the book is to make people do a little bit of critical thinking, try to understand that there is a difference between the religions. And as born again Christians, as we think about this, we recognize that Jesus Christ is the only way to come, is the only way to get to God. That was his son, and Muhammad just, boy, he really gives Jesus a hard time. He's a great prophet, but God forbid he ever had a son. But literally, as you go through the book, what ends up happening is that you get a flavor of the difference between the mindsets, the difference between the doctrines, and realize that the Muslim faith is a way into heaven. The only person that's assured to go to heaven is a martyr. And this is outlined extremely clearly in the jihad section of the book. So if you get martyred in battle, man, you got a free ticket to the 72 virgins. But if you don't, if you live through the battle, don't mess up for the rest of your life, or you may not get into heaven. So it's really a works. Now, as Christians, we understand good works. James in his epistle says that, faith without works is dead. So consequently, we understand that works is a good thing to do. But the only thing for salvation is grace, and one is grace. There's no grace expounded upon. There's a little bit about God's mercy, but not much. But grace, when the New Testament came along, when Christ lived and died and ascended, resurrected and ascended, it opened up the new covenant. It opened up the new covenant of grace. And therein, salvation is so simple. Most people just want to pass it by. But we're set here. We're set here for one question to answer: what do you do with this man called Jesus? And that is the bottom line on the whole thing. Once we become a Christian and receive the Holy Spirit, we do want to do good works. We're earning crowns in heaven. Jesus said, put your emphasis on the treasures that you're gathering up in heaven, so that the rust and the moths and the thieves can't get to them. But it's not that way in the Muslim faith. You work and work and work, and you might get into heaven.
Now, what was the inspiration behind writing this book?
And I could understand why they felt compelled to do these kind of things. So after a period of time, well, about 5 years later, I began to teach a course on Islamic faith. And it was a simple matter. I felt confident enough after the study. And I read the Quran twice. I studied it after that. And you know, it was an eye-opening experience to go through that. And by the time I got through that, and then when COVID hit, we were all shut down pretty much. So I said, okay, I'd had people tell me, you ought to write a book about this, you ought to write a book, you ought to put this down on paper. So I finally found the time to do it, and I felt compelled to do it. By the Lord's will, I needed to put this out. If nobody ever buys the book, Walil, I don't care. It is in posterity. It is forevermore on the shelves. And if anybody wants to know, they can find it. That makes sense.
It does. It does. What would you say is the top three disparity between the two religions?
The aspect of grace. Now, one other thing that he neglects to mention is that he lived 500 years after Christ was died, crucified, died, buried, ascended, and yet he doesn't recognize the Son of God. But another thing is that Paul, who wrote nearly a third of the New Testament, he he never mentions Paul, and I don't understand that, because Paul is he is a, well, he's a studied under Gamaliel. He was a lawyer. He was a member of the Sanhedrin, and then a born again Christian. And man, he went to his beheading convinced that Christ was real. Christ was the Son of God. So, and doctrinally, he wrote in his epistles, he wrote most of the doctrine that we believe. It's easy enough to read the Gospels and understand the covenant of grace, but to live it out, to apply it, man, you've got to read Paul's writings. It's just that clear. So that probably more than anything else was the thing that pushed me onward, was just the idea that I think God wanted this thing out, and it needed to be out at this time. We're having so much trouble right now. It's not even funny. We're in a world of hurt.
Now, what is the biggest thing you want people to take away from reading the book?
I want them to think. I want them to understand there's a difference. I want them to critically evaluate what I'm saying, take exception to it. I don't care. I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to convince. If they have a seeking motivation, man, go to your local church, go to your local Pastor, go to any Bible believing church and open it up and let the pastor talk to you. God can save you. I can't save you. I'm just a mortal human being.
And let everyone know where they can purchase your book from.
CharlesRFloyd.com. It's available on Amazon. It's available at Barnes and Noble. It's on several other platforms. But go to the website's interactive. You can buy it there. It's not hard to get.
And as we
But I would
close out,
I would encourage people. Go ahead.
okay, as we close out, any final thoughts or closing remarks?
Read and understand and recognize that the rationale behind the book is one of information. It's one of education. It's one of evaluation. Don't let the the mainstream media and all of the talking heads and pundits take you down a primrose path that you don't need to go. Salvation is easy, it's rich, and God has a plan for everyone's life if they'll just listen to Him.
So true. Well, Charles, I'd like to thank you for doing the interview today.
It's my pleasure. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And Will, I may just pull you up every once in a while, my man.
Yes, please do. Well, thank you
I
again for
will
doing the interview.
appreciate being here.
So that's my time today on the Real Rap Radio Show. And I'll see you guys next time on Downtown Hot Radio. Peace and blessings, everyone.